won't take responsibility. She's not really interested in therapy. She won't show up and come to therapy with me. And how do I get her to own her part? And how do I get her to come to therapy? And I was like, I think you're asking the wrong question. I think you're asking, he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, dude, you're asking, how do I change my partner? And he's like, well, maybe that's true. And I said, well, isn't that what you're doing? You're wanting her to be different. He says, okay, you got me there. That's true. I want her to be different. And I was like, it makes sense. Of course, you want to be in a relationship where you want the person to take responsibility, of course. And let's look at, since we're hanging out here, let's look at what is driving this behavior and how long has it been going on? And he said, well, come to think of it, it's been going on for 5 years. And I was like, wait, hang on a second. I was like, for 5 years, your wife is not taking responsibility for her part and she's resistant to getting help with you. Is that what you're telling me? And he said, yeah. And I said, so what have you been doing? And he said, working really hard to try to get her to do this stuff. And I said, yeah, working really hard to get her to change. And I was like, does it ever feel like you're over functioning in this relationship? And he was like, yeah, I feel like I'm doing most of the work. So, fine, folks, here's the thing, okay? You do not, to make a relationship work, you do not need to do everything. You don't. And I think the reason some of us stay in these kind of relationships where it feels like you do all the work or we do all the work is because that's what we know. It's familiar. And I'm here to tell you that you don't need to do that to get your needs met. You're not even getting them met anyway, right? If we talk about the 4 needs that I always talk about, feeling emotionally safe, seen, soothed, supported, and challenged, are you really getting those met? And are you giving what you want to receive to your partner? You know what I'm saying? Okay, I'm going to be going deep into this Thursday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time on a Masterclass. I'm going to take some questions here in a minute. But I want you to come to this Masterclass if you can relate to this story at all, where you feel like you're doing more of the work and the other person is dragging ass, or they're kind of bumping along and you're like pulling them up the mountain. And then because of this, you start to obsess, you think a lot, you overthink perhaps, you're starting to go, shit. You lay awake at night, you're worried, you're anxious, you're concerned about yourself and the relationship, and maybe you're concerned about the other person, and you feel like an overthinker. Okay, we're using simple terms here. I'm not saying this is you, but for simplicity's sake, so that people understand, a lot of us overthink and then we overfunction. And those 2 words together, the key word, the operative word here is over, meaning too much. You shouldn't have to do too much in your relationships to make them work. You should be met halfway by a mutually respectful partner who's interested as in you as you are in them, right? Okay, so this class is gonna happen Thursday. I just want to make sure. I'm going to put a comment in. Let's see if I can throw this comment in. Yeah, I just put the comment in the comments. I just put the link if you want to register for this masterclass. It's going to be fun. It's going to be confronting. It's going to be intense. Because you're not going to get what you want by overfunctioning. All right? It's not gonna do it. Or if it gets you anywhere forward, with some forward momentum, it's gonna come at a price. And that price is usually your health and your resentment. You're gonna resent this person because you feel like you're doing more. Yeah. So again, I don't recommend that. So in this class, I'm going to talk about, and I'll give you a couple tips today. In this class, we're going to talk about how to not do that and what to do instead. All right. Because what you're currently doing, if you are an overthinker, overfunctioner type person, which by the way is on the codependent spectrum, which I'll talk about in a minute. If that's you, you will not, I'm pretty sure, okay, this is a bold statement, you will not get what you want using that approach. And so it's not the other person that you need to change, it's you that you need to change. You're the person that's like doing the habit of over functioning or over efforting or, etc. So some of you might not identify with the term over function. That's fine. Another term for this that's, gets is more popular perhaps is codependent. And I kind of have a ish on the end, codependent-ish. And by the way, I have a tendency in my childhood in particular to be more on the codependent-ish spectrum. All right. And I'm going to invite you also to look in the mirror, okay, to see if this is you. Because what's cool is when you start to identify, we use a label only to identify the problem, and then I think it helps us solve the problem. And then we can remove the label. So I wouldn't get too caught up in the labels here. Okay, for Instagrammers, I'm putting in that link again if you want to join me on Thursday, okay? It'll be an hour and a half deep dive into this stuff, okay? I'm going to cover things like, why do we attract? If I'm an overfunctioner, why do I attract underfunctioners? That's a good question. How do we work with and transform our anxiety if this is us? The reason we might be on the codependent-ish spectrum and what to do about it. The reason you keep choosing to betray yourself to get connection, right? Leave your truth and your sensitivity and your needs behind so that you can have a relationship with this underfunctioner or people who don't value or invest in relationship work. And then we'll talk briefly about boundaries. Because one of the tools in the quiver that you need, in your quiver, right, is boundaries. You've got to pull out boundaries, and the boundaries have to come from a certain place or they don't work, in case you haven't noticed that. I was working with someone yesterday and they said, well, I try to set boundaries, and I'm like, well, what happens? Well, the other person just overrides them. And I'm like, that's convenient. You get to blame the other person for your unwillingness or inability to hold the boundary. How convenient for you. Now you're off the hook. You don't have to do shit. Okay, look, if we're the boundary setters, it's our responsibility to be ferocious with the boundary. And some people, some shitty people don't respect boundaries. That's when you turn up the heat, and the worst boundary is you hang up phones, you call the police, you do whatever you need to do ultimately to set a boundary. But please watch the tendency to make excuses and blame the other person for not respecting your boundaries. Okay. All right, the first boundary I want you to do between now and our class Thursday, as I said in my Instagram reel today, is to step back. Just step back. I always tell people this. Some of you have probably heard me. Step back for at least 24 to 48 hours and don't continue your habitual tracking, scanning, reaching out, texting, checking in, nothing, okay? Don't do any of that shit. And you do it for at least a day. Ideally, you do it for as long as it takes for the other person to notice anything. If you're single, you're not in a relationship, you don't have to worry about this one as much unless you're feeling that way with your kid or a parent or a sibling or a close friend. It's the same exercise. Back off. Step on the gas, step on the brakes, so that we can step on the gas later, but step on the brakes, okay, now. So that's your task. That's like pre-homework before our class on Thursday at noon Mountain Time. All right, and again, I'm dropping that link in the comments. And it's relationshipschool.com/masterclass in case you want to come play. All right. So that's the first boundary, is you're gonna take a step back, but and this is gonna also test your boundaries. Now, if you're living with the person and you're in a functioning relationship where you have to co-parent or you live in the same house or whatever, I get it. What you want to do is just only talk logistics, only talk administrative stuff. Do not talk about feelings. Do not talk about how are you, what's going on, tell me about your day. None of that shit. Back off. Big time. Okay? And then on Thursday, we'll take the next step with that boundary and tell you what to do, because you're going to get feedback between now and then based on who you're with. And again, if you're single, this kind of overfunctioning, codependent-ish stuff can play out with our families. That's the next place it plays out. Parents, child, siblings. All right? Once in a while, it can play out with a best friend, especially if they're struggling and you're not. Okay, you're the helpers in the relationship. You're like, hey, I'll help. I got this. That's you, right? Because you function, they don't. We tend to attract people who have addictions, struggle with mental health problems, who are shut down emotionally, who have a very low value on mutual connection, right? When you get into this kind of codependent-ish relationship, it's unequal. It begins to be unfair, right? You do more, they do less. It kind of works. It's a polarity, right? Over, under. I'm pretty sure you want this. You want eye level, right? Eye level. Okay, here's your next piece of homework before class Thursday. And that's relationshipschool.com/masterclass. Your next piece of homework, write this down, is to self-reflect on what set up this behavior from your childhood. Now, for some of us that have done personal growth work, this is a pretty easy answer. If you're new to this kind of stuff, it's like, what is he asking me to do? Like, this behavior didn't start. What do you mean? This is just who I am. No, this is part of your strategy, okay? And on Thursday, I'm gonna distinguish the difference between your strategic self and your true self. And there's a big difference. Strategic self is a little child who tries to get connection with mom or dad when they're unavailable. That's what a child does, okay? That's a strategy. That's not them being who they are. When children are raised in secure environments, they're free to just, they're freed up. They're not dealing with the stresses in the relationships in the family system. They're freed up to go out and play, to go to school and learn, to play sports, to dance, to play music, to learn things and be themselves. And a lot of us didn't grow up in families like that. So we got a little extra work to do here to change this, okay? So, and then the sub-question to that homework in terms of where did this strategy come from, here's the second question that's very, very important that you need to ask yourself and answer before Thursday, which is, what did I get out of this behavior? What did I get out of this strategy? So where did it come from? When did it start? Kind of vibes, right? Reflect back on your childhood. That's probably where it came from, is kind of what my assertion is here. And what did you get out of that? For example, I became a bit of a performer and kind of funny to get connection. That was one of many ways, but one of the ways I tried to get connection as a kid, right? So keep chewing on these three things, all right? And if there is a question, I'm going to do a quick question before we hang up today. Again, I'm going to put the link in the comments. Oh no, I can't do it anymore. 3 times, I guess, cut and paste is all that's allowed. What the hey? Relationshipschool.com/masterclass. Okay, if you want to join me, where we're going to unpack some of this homework, and I'm going to challenge you to do even more introspection, and I'm going to challenge you to take action. All right? Yeah, the 3 things. Sure. How to get out of the strategic self. That's a big question. Okay, there's 3 pieces of homework before Thursday's class, okay? Number 1, you're going to step back. You're going to stop overfunctioning for 2 days, 1 day, 2 days, and then you're going to relax and just be with your anxiety or fear or whatever comes up. Number 2, you're going to self-reflect on your childhood and ask yourself, where did my strategy of overfunctioning come from? And then number 3, what am I getting out of it? All right, those are the 3 questions before Thursday's class, okay? And again, if you're like, what class? relationshipschool.com/masterclass. That is where the class, where you can sign up and register for the class. Okay, Nadia, what if the boundary you are putting in place, like pulling back, also prevents you from getting the very need of connection you need met? Who cares? It's 24 hours, okay? 24 hours to 48 hours in your lifespan is not very much time. So don't worry about it. Just say, I'm unavailable. I mean, like, put yourself in a place where you're not available to be contacted. And if you are, and you're getting your needs met all day long, or, on a regular basis, then this class probably isn't for you, And then Lightbeam asked, how do I get out of my strategic self? In my book, Getting to Zero, I talk about two shitty choices. Choice A and choice B. Choice A is tell the truth. Choice B is business as usual, don't say anything. Both have consequences. Which pain do you want? Do you want to tell the truth and have pain and have great conflict, but at least stand up for yourself and keep your relationship with yourself? Or do you want to betray yourself, keep your voice muted and hidden, and continue to get the status quo thing, but lose your relationship with yourself? Like, it begins to get, when I outline it like that, you want to obviously choose path A. That's how we get out of our strategic self, by courageously embracing conflict and speaking up, right? And you will lose. You're going to lose sometimes. You're going to lose relationships. You're going to lose people in your life. But with every loss, there's a gain. All right, consider that. One more question here. Kristen, the more I would do work on myself, the more some of my family members get distanced from me. Any thoughts? Yeah, welcome to the club of personal growth and development. You will outgrow relationships. And in order to preserve relationships, you will have to betray yourself and fit yourself in a box that they want you to fit in. I don't recommend that. Anyone on the growth path knows that this is the deal. You lose friends, or friendships change. You're willing to hang out with people, but they become a little more superficial for you because you're like, I want depth, man. I want the heat. I want to bring juice into this relationship. And they're like, hey, can we talk about the game? It's not you. And family members, yeah, it's very similar. So you got to learn, how do I take care of myself in the midst of this dynamic, right? Yeah. One more here, maybe. When I try to create a little distance and pull back, I get really sick to my stomach, have trouble sleeping, and fear of abandonment. Yeah, that just means you have a significant amount of probably relational trauma in your history, or at least 0 to 3 years. And you're working with, you got to get better and more resilient at being with that fear, that terror, the shakiness, the tenderness. Like, can you see this as an opportunity for you to get stronger and more resilient there? And look, don't do it to the point where you like get flooded and shut down. I don't know that that's good for anybody, but maybe go to your edge, wherever your edge is, right? Okay. Yeah, semblance is like, I overthink a girl's energy on text. How to get better at this? I'm not sure exactly what you mean. I overthink a girl's energy. Perhaps I think maybe you just mean I overthink about someone on text, right? Because I'm into them. And that's scary, right? I just like, what should I say? And did I say the wrong thing? And I don't know, are they going to text me back and all that stuff? That's overthinking. That's obsessive thinking, right? Eventually rumination. That's not good for your health. So take better care of yourself, please. And one thing you can do, again, is anytime you're about to hit text or send or whatever, is just on your same phone, put a timer on it for 10 minutes and see if you can just meditate for 10 minutes and be with your experience. See what that's like. Because we don't want to be so caught up in our impulsivity because impulsivity in dating creates high emotional highs and lows in partnership, and that creates volatility in a relationship. So you want to get better at being with discomfort and fear and start to like be able to ride the waves, because you probably didn't learn how to do that as a kid. A lot of us didn't, who are into relationship work. But you need to get better at that, right? So you've got to start learning how to be with the little kid maybe inside that's super terrified and hold it. Like if I handed you a crying baby, could you just actually like, I got you, All right, you guys are awesome. See you Thursday, 2 p.m. Mountain Time, I believe. Go to relationshipschool.com/masterclass. We're just going to continue, all right, what we've been learning here. And really grateful for this time with you. Thanks for taking a moment out of your day to learn and turn in word, you know. And let's shine our lights outside, and let's keep learning about ourselves. Okay. See you Thursday, 2 p.m. Mountain Time, relationshipschool.com/masterclass. All right. Peace, everybody. Okay, and Facebook, I'm out.